But I like training and education. It's like, it's in me, it's gonna come out. So there's this nice word in big letters, intention. Now, there are some of you that are from India, and some of you that aren't. Those of you from India, you know what the word sankalpa is. See, they're saying, they're nodding yes. Sankalpa means, or one of the ways of translating it, means intention. It's recommended, in principle. It's like setting your GPS. Like, where do you want to go? Because if you don't set the GPS, it's going to tell you where you are on the road, but it's not going to tell you how to get to where you want to go because you haven't put in the input. What's your destination? What's your intention? I had a friend in college, which a few years ago I was in college, like 53 years ago I was in college. And in those days, having a convertible sports car was like, wow. So he had a convertible sports car. And every day, every Saturday, every weekend, he would go for a ride. And one time, just out of curiosity, he asked him, when you get in your car, top down, go drive for somewhere, where are you going? And he said, just going for a ride. And I said, I hope you get there. Or, there's no intention. Experience, life is but an experience. Now, some of you are from America and not from India, so you know the little nursery rhyme. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. You know that one. Those of you not from India, you know that one. That's where there's no intention. But if there's a purpose or an intention or something a direction that you'd like your life to move in, heading towards something, that's called sankalpa. Sankalpa in one of the contexts of sankalpa is, those of you from India, you know this, supposing somebody wants to start a business, or supposing there's a marriage, or supposing there's something, and then a yajna is performed where the intention is stated to the priest, and the priest chooses mantras and procedures and etc., tantras and everything to match the intention. So it's very important. If you want a good result, it's good to know what that result is. So that's why we're doing this at the beginning, and it'll help you in life if you have some clarity, not only what your purpose in sitting here is, but we talked about in our morning class with a group of other people. What's your purpose? In little things, and then, like, anecdotes are nice. Before I went to college, I was the youngest child of 5, and my brother and 3 sisters all went to college, and it was just kind of duh, like you go to college, you finish high school. But my father sat me down and said, what do you want to major in? What career do you want? And I wasn't ready for that question. I said, well, I was thinking I would have an undeclared major for the first year, and after the first year, state what the major is and the career that would follow that major. And he put his foot down. He normally didn't do that with me, but he said, got to have an intention. And he was protecting me. He didn't want me to just go goofy. So I thought about it and said, okay, I want to be a doctor because I like service, I like helping people, and that's a nice way to help people, so I'll become a doctor. I said, okay. But, so I'm just, this anecdotal. It's important to have intention in life. It's important to have attention in doing what you're doing. It's helpful, more than helpful. It'll help you get there. So where do negative emotions come from? That's a good question. they arrive from different places, just like there's a comparison. There's a fellow sitting at a computer. There's the hard drive, the software, and the user. Just as there's different layers of self like that. So the layers are where negative emotions arise from. Generally, it's attributed to the mind. That's the software part. The hardware part in modern life is really spiffy compared to previous. And even with this hardware improvements, more comforts, more conveniences, modern life has led to lots of negative emotion and in accelerating negative emotion. We all know what CDC is because that's been in the news with the pandemic. Here's a study by the CDC of clinically reported mental disorders going from 1968, and notice that it's quickly rising. Mental disorders, not just people feeling some negative emotion, like clinical stuff. So the people that study this, they're very concerned. Like, what's going on? Why is this? Here's some statistics, CDC statistics. Anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the US, affecting 40 million adults. That's about 20%, or 1 out of 5 adults have an acknowledged anxiety disorder. I have a friend who's a doctor, and he explained to me, not in relation to this, but something else, said it's an industry in the medical field. It's the fastest growing field in medicine, and there's lots of pharmaceuticals to help, and people practicing, and it's a big problem. The World Health Organization, 300 million people, that's a lot of people, have clinical depression. Not like that, sometimes don't feel good. In China, they don't usually let out statistics, but here's one they let out. Employees at 50 of China's top companies in 30 cities reported, here's the percentages, signs of agitation, anxiety, and 38+% haunted by depression. No, when I was being introduced, in the Far East or the East. So China is one of the places that I visit. I've been visiting I stopped during the pandemic, but for a bunch. And this very same presentation was being presented to a group of Chinese people. Maybe 50, 60 people in a public hall. And the person who organized the event happened to be an employee with China Eastern Airlines, which is like, United or American Airlines or something like that. Big airline. And they, pulled me to the side after this presentation and said, just today, because they were an executive with China Eastern, that from the 7th, just that same day, from the 7th floor of their executive offices, somebody jumped out the window and splattered on the sidewalk below. And immediately, the administration said everyone that's in an executive position must take a formal course in meditation, because it's known, not only in China, but worldwide, meditation helps when this kind of thing happens. Now, the topic was, where does it arise from? But I'm going to, what's something that can help manage it. So there's more statistics. 16.2 million adults in the USA, that's 8.7%, have experienced a major depressive episode in the past year. In 1 year's time, that's a big number, isn't it? It's a big deal. 15% of the adult population will experience sometime in the period of their life, depression. You know, depression is not just having a negative emotion. Anyway, more statistics. And ladies have more of a tendency for this. Anyway, major depressive episode. Adolescent girls have around 18% major depressive episode in their growing up. Not nice. So what to do? There's the cost, government cost, not government cost, but people that pay for this. $210 billion per year. $210 billion per year, so it's a big problem. We don't like to see people suffer, we don't like to spend all that money because people are suffering. How do they arise? And according to people that deal with this professionally, and there's a lot of people that deal with it, there's two things. Things that are impressions from our past experience. It has nothing to do with the present experience. Some past experience reminds me of a past experience. The emotion gets triggered. It's stored inside, in other words, called the mind. Impression, and it gets triggered by something outside. So something outside, like the fellow with the umbrella and it was raining, and he may have had some troubled mind because of it was raining when he thought it was going to be a nice sunny day. This is a Sanskrit word. Again, there's a number of you that are from India, so you know what this means. Anta means within, and karana means cause. Antakarana. There's an impression. I'll give a personal example. My brother was older than me, and boys will sometimes wrestle because boys are boys, just growing up little boys. And he would always win because he was bigger than me. And one of the things that he did, I didn't remember till much later because it got triggered by a circumstance, but he used to put a pillow over my head. It was like, you're defeated. And so, as a result, I didn't know until it happened later, but I had claustrophobia. Being in a confined space led to panic because of an impression from the past. And I didn't know about it until we were, a group of high school kids going to someplace. Previously it was a fort, and one of the things in the fort was where they had a little prison cell. So we're kids, high school kids. We piled into this little prison cell, and I was one of the first guys in. And as it started getting more and more and more and more and more and more, I had to get out. Fear. I didn't scream, but I pushed. And I didn't have control of myself. Because then I understood. I remembered later where it came from. It was a past impression that got triggered. Parasympathetic nervous system kicked in. I had no control. I got out, but it's like, it was embarrassing. And now, so since then I've been careful because it's stored. And I don't want it to get triggered. So I'm careful. So here, this is meant to show somebody may have, in this life or a previous life, had a water accident or even drowned. And it's stored in the mind, and there they are looking at, at the end of a hot day, looking at a nice, cool place to go swimming, and something may grip them inside and feel fear because of this antakarana. It's a cause that's within, due to some past impression. This is meant to show simply, life is a maze. This little light way over here on the right side doesn't work with. Okay. That's the goal, but how to get to the goal? Life is complex, and sometimes we don't know how to get to the goal. And we don't know when there's a positive emotion awaiting us or a negative emotion awaiting us. It's a little bit like we're observers of the mind. a little abstract, but I hope you can follow. So supposing you're looking at a TV screen and there's nothing on the screen, then there's no emotion because there's nothing on the screen. But then something shows on the screen. And it's a nice something on the screen, and then you feel something nice. Or supposing it's a horror movie, and all of a sudden, and then you feel something. And it's just a screen, not life. And the mind is like that. So part of the process of yoga is to not identify with the scene in the mind, but be identified with who the observer of things, the conscious self within, and then there's the mind, and then there's events going this way and going that way within the mind, but it's not me, I'm the observer of. It's called detachment in English, or vairagya, jnana vairagya in Sanskrit, knowledge and detachment. Knowing who you are and identifying with who you are instead of who you aren't. That's nice. Self-realization. The inner screen is often not what the outer reality is. Circumstances can be disproportionate to what's going on outside, really. Here's an example. This is the lady that works at a 1-800 hotline, so suicide hotline. One day she got a call. I'm contemplating suicide. What happened? What happened? My boyfriend didn't answer a call. So she's trained, and she didn't react. She just started asking questions. What was your situation growing up? In the situation growing up, she was in a broken home, and she felt abandoned while she was growing up. And so her boyfriend not answering one phone call triggered that emotion. It was abandonment. Contemplating suicide. I mean, it's pretty extreme, but it's not unheard of for people that professionally deal with this kind of situation. The fear of loneliness and abandonment got triggered because her boyfriend didn't answer one phone call. Okay, this is another interactive session. I hope you like the other one. Here's another one. Has there been a time in the past where you have reacted to a situation that was either disproportionate to or completely different from reality, or someone else completely misread your interaction with them? What did you learn from that experience? Here's one for me. I've had experience. I've gone out of my way on multiple occasions to do something that was meant to be an act of kindness to another, just to show to another person, you're important to me. And I found out, much to my surprise later, they read it 180 degrees the opposite. Sometimes they said it, sometimes they didn't say it, sometimes they heard it through a third party, sometimes much later. Where the reality of the circumstance doesn't match the emotion that's connected to the circumstance. Got the picture? So either way, you misread or someone misread you, and there's then some negative emotion due to misreading the circumstance. So this is find somebody, those of you that just walked in, we did this